Hey, everybody. It is Matt and AJ back on the live stream scene here on Geekscape, as well as I think on my personal page as well. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in as we reminisce about Nickelodeon on the 30-year anniversary of the Nicktoons debuting. And if we're going to talk about the Nicktoons, if we're going to talk about Nickelodeon, literally today there was a fantastic video that dropped on the Geekscape channel called Why We Love Nicktoons, and it was hosted by this person. But first, before we bring in Tessa, AJ, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, Matt.
Last week, Geekscape kind of launched its new initiative on YouTube, and you were the voice of that launch.
I was. Yes. And that was interesting because we coincided it with the MTV 40th anniversary, right? And it was interesting.
Yeah, and the responses have been pretty good. We got
pretty good.
All thumbs up on YouTube. There was no thumbs down.
No thumbs down.
We got 100% so far of positivity. All the comments have been like, "I love this, more of this." So
yeah.
Very exciting.
We can give them more. We can give them more like Britney Spears.
We may be in the middle of recording some voiceovers tonight for a video in a couple weeks, but the video that came out today was hosted and narrated by this lovely person. So let's bring her on, Tessa Markle.
Yay!
Tessa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So I know that behind the scenes, basically, I do a bunch of research and find out all of the different anniversaries that are coming up in a few months. And I sent out an email to all of the people involved with Geekscape with a list of anniversaries, and you saw the word Nicktoons and were like, yes. So tell me a little bit about your love of the Nicktoons.
Yeah, I mean, it happened exactly like you said. I saw Nicktoons and I was like, absolutely, yes, I want that one. I was obsessed with Nicktoons, and I think that it was the perfect time for me because I was born in '89. So like I was just growing up with the Nicktoons. Like it was perfect timing. Coincidentally, I also had that with Harry Potter. Like I was the same age as Harry Potter. So that was really cool. But anyway, recently too, I've been referencing Nicktoons so much with my friends, like so many things. And I'm like, oh, do you remember that on that Hey Arnold episode? Or do you remember this episode of Rugrats? And like, so it was kind of divine timing. I saw it. I was like, I've got to talk about how much I love Nicktoons.
Yeah, and you did a great job. You mentioned the Hey Arnold thing, and that came up even on the phone call. We had a talk to kind of figure out what we were going to do for the Nicktoons. Like, was it going to be a top 10 list? Was it going to be a video essay? And I'm pretty sure that during that conversation, we were like, oh, it's got to be a video essay. Like it has to be, because we probably spent, if we were on the phone for 30 minutes fleshing out the idea, probably 20 minutes was just like, oh my God, do you remember the Sea Turtle episode of Hey Arnold? Like, oh my God, do you remember when this happened? I'm like, so we just kind of started geeking out about that. And I know we started sharing some of our own personal memories of watching Nickelodeon with our cousins or with our brothers and sisters or what have you. And that's when you were kind of like, I want to do the video essay. I want to capture that vibe. I want to capture that mood and vibe. So what I'm asking of the people who are watching, we've got a couple people watching. Send us some of your memories. Do you have any memories of watching the show? I see we got a couple comments that rolled in. Let's see what's going on here. Derek said, damn Canada, Nickelodeon didn't launch until 2009.
What? Oh, that's so much later. That's crazy.
That's being robbed of adolescence.
Oh, that's devastating. Derek, you would have been like way too old for Nickelodeon by 2009. Jesus.
Yeah, he would have to have been the singer of Mindless Self-Indulgence to be enjoying that.
And then Holly Go Frightly. I may be a bit old for this topic. Nick had some cool, weird, dark tunes like Count Duckula.
Yeah, they did.
I don't even remember Count Duckula.
What? Count Duckula? What? All right, I'm the resident old head today.
Tell us about Count Duckula.
Dude, Count Duckula was this like I always thought it was a British show because the company that produced it was Thames, and it was like the Thames River.
Yeah.
But like it was this duck that was a vampire, and it would drink like carrot juice. So they like mixed up. Like you got to pull up the intro to Count Duckula and show it to these young kids who haven't seen it, because it was like, but it was before Darkwing Duck. If you remember Darkwing Duck,
I remember
But Count Duckula is brilliant. And I think it's streaming on like maybe like I don't know, Paramount Plus probably or something.
I knew the name Count Duckula, but I guess I just always, without doing any actual research on it, just always assumed that it was like a Daffy Duck side character.
No.
Like he always did like random stuff. Count Duckula, Nickelodeon's coming up, so let's
put that on and tell me you would not watch the ever living crap out of the show.
All right,
being a horror fan.
I mean, this is fair. All right, so let's do the screen share, and I see that there's some comments rolling in. We will get to that after apparently once Tessa and I figure out what Count Duckula is. All right, so there's Count Duckula. This is what's coming up in the search.
With our largest capacity,
oh, cool. We're getting a commercial. Love it.
Have to leave that final mug.
All right, YouTube, you have no right to tell us that we can't be streaming this now because we got the
intro for like a 30-something-year-old show.
Yeah, we played your commercial first for Whirlpool.
Yeah, there it is, Thames. I always assumed it was British.
Yeah, that makes me think of like Monty Python.
Castle Duckula, home for many centuries to a dreadful dynasty of vicious vampire ducks, the Counts of Duckula. Legend has it that these foul beings can be destroyed by a stake through the heart or exposure to sunlight. This does not suffice, however, for they may be brought back to life by means of a secret rite that can be performed once a century when the moon is in the 8th house of Aquarium. Blood. Are you getting? The latest reincarnation did not run according to plan.
In the Hall of Transylvania, in the Vampire Hall of Fame, yeah, there's not a vampire any other. We won't fight beast for man.
This is insane.
And things never if you're looking for some fun, you can always count upon the wild white one they call
Count Duckula.
That went in so many different ways in my brain. All right, Tessa, I want to get your first reactions on this. What are your thoughts on Count Duckula?
It looks fantastic. There's just like so much going on though. So they put in like ketchup instead of blood, and now they eat carrots. Like what?
You hit the nail on the head.
So like that was the thing, is I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, this is like a lot more serious than I thought it was going to be. And then in the last 15 seconds, it's like, it's the 80s. Like it's like
you went from like Vincent Price to like
it was so strange. That was so strange. All right, let's see what some of these comments are. I'm sure some of them came in through that. So Derek in Canada is here for the 12th anniversary of Nickelodeon's launch. Holly again saying there was a short that played between shows with the song "The Cat Came Back" that was morbid and awesome. I don't remember that.
Cat came back the very next day.
She gave us the hell yeah with some metal hands. Love it. One of my favorite Nick shows was Out of Control that aired in the 80s. It was a classic live sketch show that was hosted by David Coulier before he was on Full House. We actually may have indirectly talked about David Coulier during one of our voiceover recordings today. Again, I don't remember this, but I have a question for Tessa because I have a feeling you seem to have a knowing nod to Out of Control when I read that. I have a feeling that I have my Nickelodeon sketch shows that I remember, and I think Tessa, who's just a couple of years younger than me, would also have a different sketch show. So let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. Tessa, when you think about Nickelodeon sketch shows, what are like some of the shows that come to your mind?
I mean, all that and everything that came out of all that really was like the first thing that I saw.
And I think for me, it was two of them. You Can't Do That on Television, which was kind of like how Nickelodeon got their identity, but Roundhouse was so weird.
It was.
And I don't remember anything about any of the skits. I just remember that I feel like there was sort of a plot line to Roundhouse. Like it was a bunch of skits, but it was about a family. And all I remember is that the dad was in a remote controlled chair.
Mhm.
And that's the biggest thing I remember from Roundhouse besides the theme song.
So yeah, so it was like in like a warehouse,
Yeah.
and then they would like move the sets around.
It was like
on
watching a
wheels.
black box theater
Yeah,
performance.
exactly. I remember, yeah, the only sketch I remember from that show, and I used to love it, was that they had Paula Abdul-Jabbar, who was like it was like a combination of Paula Abdul and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they would have like all those things all the time where they combine names, but that's the one I remember.
That's insane. I'm assuming, Tessa, you do not remember Roundhouse.
I don't. I think it was a little bit before my time.
That was early. That was like, I think the first round of Snick.
Yeah,
Was like
Snick,
Clarissa,
yeah.
Roundhouse, Ren and Stimpy. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Are You Afraid of the Dark was the ender, yeah.
Let's see. We got some more rolling it. Wow, comments are flying in. Count Duckula was a spin-off of Danger Mouse.
Good
Was
to
a
know.
spin-off to
That
Danger
makes
Mouse.
sense.
Okay,
That
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense. I
Yeah.
vaguely remember Danger Mouse. I can't even speak for Platinum. I'm totally dancing too. Thanks for playing that. It made my day. Let's see. Out of Control Rules. Cut it out. Love
Oh,
it.
is that what that was from? I thought that just came up on Full House. I didn't
I
know.
think it was originally from, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And of course, you can't do that on television. You can't do that on television. Honestly, I know I told Tessa when she was getting ready to do the Nicktoons video, I said, you have to watch the Orange Years on Hulu before you write down whatever script you decide to do for this, because amazing documentary. Everyone should go check it out. But they really do dive into like, you can't do that on television is Nickelodeon. Even though it wasn't produced by Nickelodeon, that show really was like everything. Tess, obviously you're aware of it from the documentary, but did you ever watch it when they would play reruns later on in the 90s or not really?
No, I think I kind of just, missed the timing on that one. But yeah, I only knew of it from the documentary. But it does sound like it's so like quintessential Nickelodeon. Like that's totally what they based like their humor and stuff on. So
yeah, did you ever watch it, AJ?
Oh yeah.
Like the slime came from that. The just all the weirdness. The very like Terry Gilliam opening credit sequence I always think of.
Yeah,
but
very animated.
Very strange song that it starts with. We'll keep moving through the comments. Was Avatar Nickelodeon? You bet your ass it was. Avatar: The Last Bender. What a good cartoon.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch?
I've never seen an episode of
Tessa, am I alone on the Avatar Island here?
So I watched it when I was dating my high school boyfriend. His little brother was super into Avatar. So that's when I remembered first seeing it. It wasn't like from me watching Nicktoons, but it was like, I still liked cartoons, but I was like too old to like sit down and watch them,
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like watch him with his little brother. And then to find out like in past recent years that it was like still on TV and stuff, I was like, whoa, like I remember that from decades ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So
but it's only in reruns. Like I think they did a spin-off show later, but it was 3 seasons. That's all the creator wanted to do, and he had his story to tell. And it was kind of rare for Nicktoons because it was a very serialized story with a start, middle, and end. And it dealt with like really heavy, like it was heavy. The concept is not anything that's like unheard of in the realm of fantasy, but it was, these different islands, and each island had these different powers. So there's the people that controlled the water, people who controlled fire, and people who controlled the earth. And then there was a group of airbenders who kind of united all of them. But there's only ever one true airbender who can keep them united. And the kid who was supposed to be the airbender dies. But they find out years later that he was actually frozen in ice, and they thaw him out. And the world is in chaos because he hasn't been there for so long. So it's literally these 3 kids trying to teach him I believe it's from the Water Tribe. They're trying to train him on how to learn all these different magic skills because the Fire Tribe has just taken over the world.
Wow.
And but like, you go into all these different things where like the main kid from the Fire Tribe that you think is the villain, you realize has a really abusive, power hungry dad. And then you get into all these different things,
understanding
of like
trauma,
nature versus nurture. Wow. And like, could he be a good person deep down? It deals with some heavy shit.
Wow.
For a kid's cartoon. I remember I watched it was on Netflix. At one point, the whole thing was on Netflix. Like when Netflix first started streaming,
it
was like an early streaming thing on there, and I watched it every day after work. I would like knock out 4 or 5 episodes. I was like, "This show's it's amazing." Wow. Yeah. was a big Amazon Prime Day purchase for me. You get all 4 seasons for $10 on DVD. So I was like, sold.
Yeah. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. Don't watch the movie.
I was gonna say I it was tainted for me by the movie.
Yeah, don't watch the movie.
Okay.
You can't do that on television. At a very young Alanis Morissette.
Ah,
Again, tying in with the David Coulier.
yeah.
Potentially. That sketch show on Nickelodeon combination.
Nick or
Treat.
Treat.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I think I do remember Nick or Treat.
Yeah.
I'm
Vaguely,
look, I think this is time to bring back up the YouTube videos.
Hey
'cause
now.
I'm gonna search Nick or Treat and see what it gives us.
Hopefully nothing dirty.
Nickelodeon Nick or Treat
Sweepstakes. There we go.
Discovery Plus.
Oh, cool, another ad.
That's right, we can skip it in a couple
YouTube, leave
seconds.
us alone.
D&D and history.
I don't want a single copyright infringement word out of them.
So, you thought this was going to be just an ordinary Halloween. Well, this Halloween, Nickelodeon's giving away candy and a whole lot more as we unleash
Nick or Treat!
the first annual Nick or Treat Halloween giveaway. Get a pen, get a piece of paper, get your 2 best friends, and get your parents.
Parents?
Because you're spending Halloween weekend in Hollywood. You'll fly first class to the home of the movies, live it up in the posh Sheraton Premier Hotel. You'll have a chauffeur-driven limousine and $500 to spend any way you want. Then,
Welcome to the Berman Studio. And I'm Tom Berman.
Hollywood's wizard of special makeup effects
Okay.
on movies like Star Trek 3 and Close Encounters will transform you into almost anything. Imagine a Halloween costume so fantastic even your mother won't know you.
Nick or Treat! Nick or Treat!
Plus, you and your friends will each get a Viewmaster Gremlin gift set and your weight in delicious milk chocolate M&M. Melt in your mouth, not in your costume candy. To win, send a postcard with your name, address, age, and phone to Nick or Treat, GPO Box 2726, New York, New York 10116, and get it here by October 15th. You gotta be 16 or under to enter. 100 runners-up get Viewmaster Gremlin gift set. Enter now and win. It's Nickelodeon's biggest contest ever.
I kind of want to enter.
Well, that was magical.
Something for everyone in that.
Yeah.
So Tessa, I'm gonna say a controversial opinion here, and hold on a second, I'm trying to get this video to stop. And maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree, but I know that you're an East Coast girl at your core, even though you live on the West Coast. I kind of think Halloween in LA kind of sucks compared to like Halloween in not Hollywood areas. Like, I think that's like a real Halloween experience downgrade, all things considered.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, Halloween out here, like, the big thing is to go to West Hollywood for, like, to see all the costumes and stuff. But you go to something like that, and it's like going to Times Square for New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Like, or there's no bathrooms because everywhere is packed. You can't get a drink. Like, it's really not worth it. And, like, Halloween when it's not fall is just, it's like Christmas when it's not winter. Like, there's something wrong with that. So
I think that's the best way to say it. I didn't know how to explain it to people, but like that's 100% it. It's you need the dried up dead leaves on the ground for it to truly feel like Halloween.
yes.
Let's see, I don't moosel. I don't know what that's, or just moose with a. Let's see. You had to answer your phone Nick or Treat to win something.
Oh, they would call you.
Oh, that's how they get you.
Yeah.
More than just the postcard.
I was slimed at Universal Orlando. Got a certification and everything. I wish I could find it.
Wow.
Yo, did either of you ever go to Nick Studios at Universal?
No.
I'd been at Universal, but I'd never gone inside.
Yeah, so I did. I think I was probably like 7 at the time or something like that. And I got to be like part of the live studio audience. And I think it was, I don't know that they were actually like taping an episode of something though. I think it was kind of just like a pretend version of it. And I remember like going into it being like, yeah, I'm going to be one of those contestants. And then getting so shy when they were looking for kids. So I'm like raising my hand, but like really nervous that they were actually going to pick me and that sort of thing. So I didn't really like get to do much. But it was cool just being there. And the slide machine outside was like anybody, as long as you were on the lot, you could go up and you just like waited till the timer went off and you could get slimed. But it was so disappointing because they would just like shoot out the tiniest few little drops of slime. Like you expected this geyser, and it was so little slime that actually came out of it. I don't know if it was just like the machine was getting old or what, but it was really disappointing. But I will say that like being actually in the studios and getting to watch them, even if it was like a fake taping or whatever, like that was really cool for me as a kid. That was exciting. But yeah, getting slimed was not as cool as I thought it was going to be.
I feel like also in the same vein as like disappointing experiences. There's a podcast called The Adventures of Danny and Mike. That's the actors who played Pete and Pete, just sharing memories of doing Pete and Pete, but also just like shooting the shit. They're basically just like two stoners that play music together. So like they just have weird stories about their 20s and 30s. But they told a story one time because little Pete was on Figure It Out, which was like arguably, we'll get into this because the whole topic would be like, if you could only be on one Nickelodeon game show, what would you do? Figure It Out might be one of my choices. But one of the things that you could win is like random crap. And one of the things was a piece of the aggro crag, similar to on Guts. And he said the thing with the aggro crag was that the piece of the aggro crag was built just big enough that you couldn't do it as carry-on at the airport. And that people who flew in from out of state would try to bring it on as carry-on and then be told that they couldn't. So the airport would confiscate it and send it back to Nick Studios so they wouldn't have to keep producing more pieces of aggro.
Oh, man.
Give out. So it was something like, he's like, I think one out of every like 20 kids actually got to take it home. And the other ones just kept getting returned to us by the airport. Let's try to get through these comments and then we'll dive into some more discussion. Let's see. There was a teen soap opera on Nick called 15 that starred a very young Ryan Reynolds.
Oh.
I don't remember that at all.
That sounds like a fever dream.
I was obsessed and repulsed by Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
We got to talk Ren and Stimpy. We won't talk about the creator of Ren and Stimpy. You can do your own research on that. We like good vibes on these types of shows, but he's a scumbag. So go ahead and look up a little bit of that. A lot of grooming involved with him. But Ren and Stimpy is wild.
Yeah.
Like the idea that got on television is insane. I think even in the video, Tessa was like, I felt like I was too goody two shoes to watch Ren and Stimpy. I was like, ooh, boogers are gross. Like,
yeah, totally.
But did you ever sit down and watch it as an adult, or did you kind of just write it off and never really revisit it?
Yeah, I mean, I never went back and like fully like, watched a bunch of it or anything. But I mean, even as a kid, I was still like curious. So, I had still seen some of it. But yeah, it's like, I'm really genuinely surprised that was allowed to be on like daytime kids TV.
Yeah.
When I was trying to pull clips from the video, there were clips that I pulled that I was like, I think we could get demonetized for putting this clip from an animated cartoon up. Because it was like I remember the one was a guy with a cheese grater and he grated his arm down to the muscle. And I think I stopped there in the video. But the continuation of the clip was then he just starts taking lemons and like rubbing the lemons on it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so disgusting.
Yeah.
It's so, oh my God. Ren and Stimpy was definitely my favorite show at the time.
Oh yeah.
I think as an adult, I still like it a lot, but I think it's kind of in the same way that like, I think Beavis and Butthead is a really smart, dumb show, but I liked it way more as a 12-year-old kid watching something I wasn't supposed to watch than I do as a 30-something-year-old who can watch whatever he wants. Like it doesn't, there's like that element of danger as a kid that made the show way more enjoyable than when it's just like, well, my mom's going to come in and yell at 36-year-old me to not be watching Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah. Well, when you're a kid running around the house going, don't whiz on the electric fence. Like, I mean, that's a lot more fun than being an adult doing that, in a Walmart.
For whatever reason, people who comment on my personal Facebook when this is streaming don't show up on the StreamYard thing. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Paul Anderson, who said Ren and Stimpy was SpongeBob for the crack generation.
Yes.
Which, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what else.
SpongeBob definitely would not exist without Ren and Stimpy.
That just is wrong. It's not just airbenders, it's the avatar from a chosen tribe that learns. Listen, Yanks, I watched that shit like 20 years ago. Give me a break. I watched Avatar as an adult at the recommendation of another adult, and it is one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Oh.
So yeah, Derek, given more, you guys should both go watch it. There are a few Nick shows that I remember, like Think Fest and Make That Grudge and Finders Keepers. I don't remember any of these at all, but
I remember Finders Keepers. Yeah.
Speaking of nightmare fuel, today's special where mall mannequins come to life.
Yeah.
Oof. There's a lot of, I mean, I love
That's
that
a lot of older stuff.
Speaking of Pete and Pete, during the later seasons, it started to have a very young Michelle Trachtenberg. That is true. Pete and Pete, I'm waiting for when we have a Pete and Pete anniversary, and I will do the deepest of deep dives, because I think that show is probably. So here's a topic for us to talk about real quick, using Pete and Pete as the jumping point. Were there anything that as a kid on Nickelodeon you weren't a fan of, but then maybe rediscovered at a later age and had like a completely newfound appreciation for it? Because for me, it was Doug and Pete and Pete.
Really?
I didn't really like Doug that much as a kid. It was
Wow.
fine. Like, I watched it with my cousins. Pretty much every Saturday we'd be at my grandmother's house and she had Nickelodeon. And 7 o'clock, we'd go upstairs, we'd watch Doug, we'd watch Rugrats, and then we'd watch Snick. And Doug was always like, I wasn't invested. I didn't really care. I thought the animation was like really sloppy and it was kind of weird. And now, like, as an adult, I'm like, I love that it's so lo-fi. I love that it's so like low budget amateur animation. And I just love that Doug is just such a pure, sweethearted, genuine kid.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there wasn't any stakes to a lot of the episodes, and that's why I didn't like it. And now I love it because it had almost no stakes.
It's interesting.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like,
Yeah.
Doug's a good kid, and you just see him be a good kid. And it's
I mean, bullying. I mean, he would get bullied by Roger all the time.
but like Roger was never. I think the difference is, like, when you think of like bullying, think about bullying in like an 80s film, right? Like in a John Cusack film, when someone's bullying John Cusack, the whole school is backing that bully.
Yeah.
And is like, yeah, John Cusack's weird. But like in Doug, no one backed Roger except for his 3 like weird looking cronies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, so it was like, even then it had like a very like, look, no one likes Roger. No one wants to be Roger.
I guess I don't know. I always looked at it like Roger was a threat. I mean, he was a tough guy, and he had a leather jacket, and he had that cool haircut. And what would
Pretty cool hair.
would he look stupid in front of Patty Mayonnaise, and could he really tell her his feelings? And would his dog Pork Chop not be his dog anymore?
That's fair. I mean, there was moments.
I think there's some tension there.
How about you, Tessa? Was there anything that as a kid you were like, no thanks, and then, similar to like you watching Last Airbender on your high school boyfriend's couch, you're like, hey, this ain't bad.
I don't think there was anything I like didn't like that I went back and liked, but I definitely have like different appreciations for stuff. Like Rugrats is a really big one that, like, I mean, Rugrats was on like all the time when I was growing up. Like, I had no choice but to watch it, but I liked it anyway. But like now as an adult going back, like I see the grown-ups and like all the humor in that too, that I like, just, it was kind of over my head when I was a kid. So it's like a total different appreciation for it. But yeah, I don't think there was anything that I like actually didn't like that I've revisited, but yeah.
And AJ, how about you?
I can't say that I've gone. I mean, I've gone back and watched SpongeBob as an adult. Like, SpongeBob didn't exist when I was a kid because I'm a little older. But I've gone back and watched it now as an adult, and I appreciate it. But I also see the nod to Ren and Stimpy. I'll tell you one that I hated as a kid and have not gone back to check out, but maybe I will after this conversation. David the Gnome.
I don't remember much about David the Gnome except that I still think the theme song was a banger.
What? See, I would hear that and be like, click. MTV now.
So during the brief 6 months that I lived in Los Angeles, I would sometimes do this. Geekscape was doing a monthly comedy show, and for my last month there, I went up with a guitar and did a theme song sing-along set for 15 minutes, and David the Gnome was 100% in the theme song.
Of course you did.
Set.
Did anyone know it?
Yeah, a couple people sang
really?
along with it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the catchiest thing about that show. Again, I want to read something that Paul Anderson put here, which he said, I always saw Doug as the Generation X version of the Peanuts, with Doug as Charlie Brown and Roger just always pulling that ball away from him.
Yeah.
But the thing that kind of spawned this was Pete and Pete. Pete and Pete was a show that at the time that Pete and Pete was out, I cared about cartoons pretty much exclusively.
Yeah.
So Pete and Pete, like I think Pete and Pete replaced, maybe it even replaced Ren and Stimpy. And I was just like, no, thank you. But now, like as an adult, that show, the idea of that show is the strangest shit. It's Twin Peaks for kids.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
it is the weirdest show. And like the guests on it, because I think I read somewhere that the creators and directors cut their teeth doing music videos in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have like Michael Stipe from REM is in there, like members of the B-52s pop up in there, the Violent Femme show up in there. Iggy Pop is like a reoccurring neighbor.
Yeah.
Like, it is the strangest stuff. And just like the premises of those episodes, like Tessa, when you were talking about how you would talk to your friends even like a year or two from now and you'd be like, oh my God, do you remember when like blank happened on Hey Arnold? Pete and Pete is that show for me, where it's like, do you remember the episode where they had a cereal that had marshmallow presidents and little Pete would stick each president up his nose and blow it out? And then he got one stuck in his nose, or like the time that Pete got grounded and he had to dig a tunnel from the basement to the front yard to watch the 4th of July fireworks. He was inspired by his ant farm. Like, it is the strangest show.
I do remember that.
Artie, the strongest man in the world, fighting the ocean.
Yeah.
Like at the end of summer, like it's just a wild show.
So I need that. Does that exist streaming?
I hope so. Pete and Pete originally began as shorts on Nick. I do remember that. One of the Nick shows I remember was a science fiction show called The Tomorrow People.
Huh.
There was, Tessa, maybe you'll remember this because you probably would have been the right age for this. I think I was in 5th or 6th grade, so I think you would have also been in elementary school. But there was a weird sci-fi show that was on Nick that was like a sci-fi drama, and I don't think it was The Tomorrow People because that doesn't ring a bell. But I remember the one girl had like a spiral rainbow hairstyle down the whole side of her head, and I cannot for the life of me remember what that show is. If anybody watching knows what I'm talking about, please comment and let me know. And we got 2 more great shout outs here. Salute Your Shorts.
Yes.
I mean,
that's my generation right there.
Absolute classic. And The Secret World of Alex Mack.
That was my first crush. Truth be told.
Mr. Wizard was the man.
Yes, Mr. Wizard.
And here we go. Space Cases. That was what that show was called.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, let's jump back to Salute Your Shorts for a quick second. Salute Your Shorts. I mean, when I mentioned David the Gnome being a banger of a theme song,
I mean,
I mean, to this day, I'll just randomly be humming.
Camp Anawana, we hold you in our hearts, and when we think about you,
it makes me want to fart. Did you know that I hung out with Donkey Lips?
When?
So I used to throw concerts, as you know.
Yes.
And I had booked this one rap group that my friend Tommy was in called Nitty Gritty.
Mm-hmm.
And
of course,
Tommy was a filmmaker, and Tommy's doing really well for himself. I'm actually going to a film festival in Austin, Texas next month where his documentary about Guar is debuting.
Nice.
But he did the Bill Murray stories that was on Netflix. He did a Christmas documentary called I Am Santa Claus. He's done a bunch of really cool stuff.
Bill Murray stories was awesome.
Yeah, he's working on a documentary right now about people. This is on point for us. I was literally, I know Tessa hasn't seen this movie because it came up yesterday, but he's making a documentary about people who live in homes that were in famous movies.
Nice.
And he brings members of the cast to those homes. And he sent me an exclusive clip of Ethan Embry at the house from Can't Hardly Wait, where him and the homeowner recreate him confessing his love to Jennifer Love Hewitt.
What?
Yeah. So good stuff there. But he always had these weird connections with people, and he was making a movie with his friends, and they looked into how much it would cost to get Donkey Lips to be in their movie, and it wasn't that bad. So they're like, let's get Donkey Lips in our movie.
Yeah.
So they paid for him to come out for the weekend, and they just happened to be playing a show that same weekend for me. So he's like, hey, I'm going to bring Donkey Lips to the show. And I was like, can I advertise that Donkey Lips is going to be there? And he was like, let me ask him. So he asked and goes, he said, yes. And do you want him to give someone an awful waffle? And I was like, yes. So there's video somewhere on the internet of my brother getting an awful waffle from Donkey Lips at this show. It was a wild show, man. It was Donkey Lips, and the headliner was MC Lars.
Oh wow!
So it was a really good time. But yeah, I hung out with Donkey Lips.
Wasn't he in Dude, Where's My Car?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a delightful man. A little strange but delightful. Secret World of Alex Mack with a question mark.
Yeah.
Did we?
Do you not know
said
that
it earlier? Oh wait, no, sorry. He said that. Oh, he was trying to think of the sci-fi show. Getting all thrown off.
Yeah, it's
no
a little
theme
wild
song.
and a little strange.
No theme song better than Hey Dude. I do agree with
Make
that.
a home out on the see. That's the one that gets stuck in my head randomly, and I hate it because I'll like tell. I'm like, yo, do you know what that's like? Hey Dude.
Yippee-ki-yay.
What?
My thought process with that song is always killer cacti and those man-eating jackrabbits. Like,
hey dude,
the stuff that lives rent-free in our brains from when we were like 8 years old is actually
insane. And Ben Stiller's wife was in that show.
Yes, she was. Someone bought me as a birthday gift, the first season of Hey Dude. Does not hold up.
No,
it's not very good.
That's not surprising at all with that. Tessa, did you see that show?
Yes.
Hey Dude. Okay.
I feel like Hey Dude was like years after production was over. It would just play randomly at like 7 p.m. on Nickelodeon after like a block of Looney Tunes cartoons. Like they'd be like, here's Looney Tunes classics, and now Hey Dude, and then like all the kids change the channels to Fox to watch The Simpsons or something. Like it was a wild. Their programming sometimes was a little weird, but one of the things that was always on Nickelodeon was game shows. So I want to bounce back to a question I had proposed a little bit earlier. If you could have been on any Nick game show, what is the show you most would have wanted to be on? Because there's a lot of good options out there.
Yeah, I think I've got 2 top ones.
Okay.
Figure It Out, like you said, was a big one for me. I spent hours trying to find my secret undiscovered talent so I could be on that show. I knew one day I'd figure it out and I could be on Figure It Out, but it never happened, obviously. And then the other one, I can't think of the title of it right now, so you guys will have to help me. But it was an older one where they just like played video games.
Nick Arcade.
Yes.
Nick Arcade.
That was easy.
they would green screen them into the arcade game as the final round.
And that's how I discovered Chip's Challenge, which I was obsessed with. If you guys remember that from like old Windows computers, I would play that game for hours. That's why I first saw it. So yeah.
So here's the thing. I think I would pick Legends of the Hidden Temple as far as being a contestant.
They are doing a reboot supposedly.
I saw supposedly with adults that can do it, like a 30+ version of that. So maybe I can still live out that dream. But I think with Figure It Out, I actually wanted to be famous enough to be a panelist on Figure It Out. Like, I didn't care about me having a skill for that show. I wanted to be the one at the panel desk trying to guess people's skills.
Yeah.
I remember when Nickelodeon Guess came out. It was while I was in college.
Oh, wow.
And it was this channel that just played. It was Nickelodeon Games and Sports, Nickelodeon Guess.
Yep.
And every day I'd come home from Penn State and I would slump on my parents' couch and I would just put that on and just write essays while like Legends of the Hidden Temple and Figure It Out reruns just played for hours.
Yeah.
Like it was like the perfect background noise to studying time. See the chat is
Double Dare.
Double Dare was a good one. Well, you let us know what yours is because it looks like that chat's blowing up. It looks like people jumped in on this topic.
Yeah, definitely. No, I would be on Double Dare in a second.
Double Dare?
Yeah.
I could have seen you as a Guts guy.
And Guts. Mike O'Malley. Yeah.
Let's see. Space Case had Walter and Manuel Jones, who's known for playing Zach, the Black Ranger on the series Power Rangers.
Oh, interesting.
Nick Arcade, case closed. Nick Arcade, a lot of Nick Arcade votes here. Was video and arcade top 10 a Nick show? I don't think it was.
Get your Canadian programming out of here, buddy.
Finders Keepers.
Go find some maple syrup.
I don't remember Finders Keepers.
I remember Finders. A little bit.
It's only Nick Arcade. No other game show matters. Man, a lot of what would you do is better than Double Dare Fight Me. I agree with you, Big Yanks.
Wow.
What would you do? So do you remember What Would You Do?
Yeah.
It had that pie chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw a show out there for both of you. And I was fucking obsessed with this show. So much so that like when I would go to my grandparents' house, I'd be like, look, I need to know that I have a TV that I have access to at this time so I can watch the show. Do either of you remember Wienerville with Mark Wiener?
Yes. Pull it up.
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah.
It was I'm gonna have to move this mic while I type. It was a weird puppet show where he would put people's heads over puppet bodies and puppeteers would control the arms while they did all the talking. It was such a strange show, but for whatever reason, and I guess my love of puppets went all the way to that moment in my life where I was like,
wow,
listen, Grandma, we're shutting off the TV and we're putting on some Nickelodeon so I can watch some fucking Wienerville.
That's crazy.
It's the only time I cursed at my grandmother. I was like,
yeah,
listen here, bitch.
I would have got thrown down some stairs.
Let's see. Let's check out this episode.
I can't wait to
Oh my God, yes, I do remember this.
days. It'll be a blast.
And he played every character on it.
As soon as I give Wilson his coordinates, I'll be landing smack dab right in the middle of Puppet City in a flash. Over and out, Wilson! Yes, Commander. Wilson, carefully locking these coordinates. We're headed for Wienerville.
Commander, do you think I should continue to grow my hair?
You know what's best. You know what I always say, a hairy crew is a happy crew.
Is he here yet? Where is he?
Such a strange show.
Wow.
I remember one time. Let me see if I can even find this.
1, 3,
Exit
5,
full screen.
O-W.
I'm pretty
in a
sure
hurry.
Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis in the News ended up on an episode. I guess I can't find it. Oh my God, I forgot about this guy.
Let's see if we can work.
Hold on a second.
With all this noise.
Game pause. Because yeah, there was like normal puppets too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all came flooding back as soon as I saw that head.
He said he put a little gizmo in Mark's ear so we can feed him his lines over this microphone. Philadelphia.
It's such a weird show.
Sounds like Impractical Jokers.
There it is.
Yep, that guy.
Yep. Hold on a second. I want to take a second to appreciate how fucking weird this puppet is. Because I just realized what's happening here. So he is puppeteering it upside down. That is insane.
Yeah.
It's a hand. What a weird invention.
How did that get on there?
Well, you know, that looked great, but I don't remember it, Sacco. Hey, you know, I read somewhere that if you get a hit in the head, maybe you can regain your memory. Hey, that's not my head. Close enough.
What a
That's
weird...
crazy.
That is... Yeah, I swear, though, that Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis in the News was like a person in the audience they pulled up.
Could have been.
At one point. Let's see. Absolutely. Moose-a-Rama had showed episodes of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I do remember that was probably where I first saw Rocky and Bullwinkle. Sacco crawled so Triumph could run.
True.
But yeah, man, like I think that's one that was like buried in my memory banks until literally a couple seconds ago. I was like, wait a second, Wienerville. I used to love that show. I don't think I'm going to revisit it just based on some of the clips that we watched. I think that was definitely humor for a 10-year-old that stays as humor for a 10-year-old. But
I laughed.
I mean, the fountain bit was pretty good, actually. but yeah, like the stuff that they got away with is wild, right? Like it really was. I know in the documentary they said like every show that we did had to have this little edge of danger where you felt like your parents maybe wouldn't want you watching it. And for sure, they absolutely did.
Yeah. But I think that's what's great about it, because it was like actual like kid humor. You know, it wasn't like, yes, it was made by adults, but it wasn't what adults thought kids thought was funny, you know, like it was actually good kid humor. And that's why we loved it so much, I think.
I agree. I think that that's why people remember it and think about it and sit on a live stream for almost an hour talking about it. You know, we were talking about stuff that lives rent free in our minds from then, and I think about the fact that there are random things that like you retain from your childhood and they just become part of your regular vernacular. And I know that there are like catchphrases and noises and just random things that I do that stem from different Nickelodeon moments. Is there do any of you have any of those like weird tics that don't like that just stem from Nickelodeon as a kid?
Oh, that's I'd have to think about it. I know I definitely did, like, as a kid, I would make, like, and when Angry Beavers came out, like, me and my friends would make all those, like, and, like, those weird sounds they make.
I was actually gonna bring up Angry Beavers because I think to this day I still make like the noise as I'm like trying to lift something. like I just Daggett would make that noise every time he'd have to lift something, and I was just like, why does that still all these years later? It's still just like a noise that I'll make.
Yeah.
and it stems from being a kid watching Angry Beavers and being like, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say totally. If I ever have to like say out loud that I'm turning the page on something, turn the page. You wash
your hands.
You wash your hands.
I think Rocco's definitely was just a quote machine. Because I think of one that comes up a lot is like, oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Like, which again, as an adult, I realized, oh, Rocco's a sex worker. But as a child, that kind of went over my head a little bit. A tiny bit. I mean, Rocco, one of the writers of Rocco, is a friend of Geekscape. I signed at the Geekscape booth a couple times, San Diego Comic-Con, Martin Olson, and he told me that when that show was created, the guy had no intention of making a kid's cartoon, but somehow he sold it to Nickelodeon, and he had no interest in making kids entertainment. So he drove around Los Angeles, and he went to open mic nights, and he found all of the filthiest comics that he could find, and he said, let's write a kids show together and see how much we can get away with. And it was just a game in the writer's room of what can we do? Like, how far can we go before someone tells us to stop?
Love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he said that, and literally, the I never knew this until talking to him, that my personal favorite episode of Rocco's Modern Life is an episode called Wacky Deli, in which Rocco, Heifer, and Filbert get hired to create their own cartoon series as like to fulfill a contract for this animator who did a show called The Fatheads based on his parents, and he wants to go and do real art. He doesn't want to keep doing kids movies and kids stuff. And so he hires Rocco, Heifer, and Filbert because he's like, they're idiots. This show will get canceled within a couple episodes, and then my contract will be done, and I can do what I want to do. That character is based on the creator of Rocco's Modern Life and voiced by the creator of Rocco's Modern Life. Like, it was like that meta.
Autobiographical.
Yeah, like that autobiographical. But that episode, that's another one where it's like, when I was a kid in high school, I want to say it was 8th grade, middle school, or 9th grade, high school, we had to read a book called I Am the Cheese.
Yes.
And every time I saw that book title, my brain would just be like, I am the cheese. I am the greatest character in the show. I am better than both bologna and salami.
I never even put that together. That is a great book, though.
Oh, it's a really good. It was one of like, you know, at that point where you're like still not really interested in reading, even, and then like forced reading, it's even worse. But that was one of those few books where I'm like, I'm into this.
Yeah,
like it was just a.
It was a book for outcasts.
It was. It really was. And it's kind of, I had a teacher who, and we're getting off of Nickelodeon for a little bit, but I had a teacher who got in a lot of trouble in high school because he decided to take Catcher in the Rye off of the curriculum and replace it with Perks of Being a Wallflower, because he was like, it has all the same themes, but the kids are going to relate to it more.
Yes.
And it turned into this huge fight because it's not a proven classic yet.
Well,
and
now it is.
And his argument was like, are we here to just force kids to read books that they don't want to read? Or are we trying to get them to actually be invested in reading as like a leisurely activity?
Yeah.
And to his credit, Catcher in the Rye is the book that made me read. Like that, those books like speak to you. And I do think that Nickelodeon, as we talk about all the goofy stuff and all the weird stuff and all the edgy stuff, they actually did a good job of like making things like that cool. They did do stuff like book drives. They did Nick News, which like I know I was texting Tessa about this, but there's a segment in that documentary that they show from Nick News where like if you can watch that and not get choked up watching the clip that they pulled, like you have zero heart and emotions. But like bringing Magic Johnson on to do a special about HIV, like that was insane for a kids channel. But yeah, was there any positive educational things that stick with you from Nickelodeon? Because I know I didn't watch Nick News when it was on. I wish I did after seeing that clip, but
I don't remember a lot like specifically from Nick News, but I feel like I just learned so much from the cartoons, which was cool because they weren't like really meant to be educational cartoons like you see on like a lot of kids channels today. But like I know we've talked about this a ton, Matt, but Hey Arnold specifically, like so many cultural and historical references that like, I mean, there was obvious ones like when they go to the opera or when they like have to do Shakespeare, but then there was other ones that I didn't even like know was based on something until I was an adult, like Bobby Fischer for the Chinese checkers and stuff like that, you know, like it was full of those, you know, and a lot of them were like that, like Rugrats. I learned all about the Jewish high holy days from that show.
Yeah. Well, and
unskunked, and you know, so yeah, I love that.
And yeah, bouncing off of Hey Arnold, that has an anniversary coming up really soon. I know Tessa and I are already plotting out how to properly do a tribute to Hey Arnold, because I don't think as a kid I appreciated that, like as a white kid growing up in a very white suburb, like I had a very negative perception of what the city was. And Hey Arnold really does capture, like Hey Arnold feels like it takes place in a Spike Lee movie. Like it is capturing that Spike Lee version of, you could see all of the events of Do the Right Thing happening in Hey Arnold. Like it just captured that idea of like, yeah, it's not the richest neighborhood. But it's this diverse tapestry of neighbors who love and appreciate and support each other, and everybody knows each other, and they all go to the same person to get their deli meats, and they all go to the same place to do this, and they have to catch the bus, and they have to take the subway to school, and like just capturing that in a kid's cartoon. Like now it feels like you see that a little bit more, but you definitely weren't seeing that in the 90s. The 90s, it was like, yeah, it's a bunch of white kids in the suburbs. Check it out. Like,
I mean, except Sesame Street.
Yeah. I mean, but that was the thing. Sesame Street, that was what Sesame Street's demographic was like, we're making a show for kids that don't have a good education system so that they can still learn things. But like, Hey Arnold, it wasn't even like, it wasn't actively educational, but it's like, as I step back and look at it from a different perspective, it's like, oh man, yeah. And talk about another one with rent-free quotes. I still say stoop kid won't leave the stoop. Like,
leave a stoop.
See, we got a couple more comments that rolled in. Oh, we got Cousin Skeeter, which I do vaguely remember Cousin Skeeter. I just remember he was a puppet, but I don't remember much else about Cousin Skeeter. I still make the honk noises that Skeeter. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. See, there was a series on Nick called Pinwheel. I think they actually talk about that in the documentary, that was like the first thing they ever produced.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
My older friends talk about it, but I didn't personally remember it.
Yeah, no, I didn't even recognize the logo. Usually I at least remember the logos. There was a Nick show called Caitlin's Way that was about this troubled girl who was sent to live with her relatives who lived at a farm.
Ooh, I don't remember that.
I don't remember that one at all.
No, but I do think that we do have to. It would be I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Are You Afraid of the Dark? I feel like that is.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing my shirt, you guys. I'll have to show you.
Nice, yeah, Midnight
Society.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm rocking my NickToons made in the 90s t-shirt that I literally have just had sitting in a drawer for 3 years, waiting for just this type of moment. I was like, finally, it's time to shine. I can come out of retirement. I mean, did you, I know you watched. I know I watched. Did you watch Are You Afraid of the Dark? Or was that
Yeah.
past? Okay.
Yeah.
I know that our age difference isn't that much, but sometimes it's like
When you're a kid, though,
it's a huge difference.
That's what's funny is like you guys have a bridge on certain shows and we have a bridge on certain shows,
but there's still like a divide amongst all of them. It's wild.
But no, Are You Afraid of the Dark was like the last Nick at Night
Snick show. Yeah, it was Snick. Nick at Night.
Not Nick at Night.
We'll get into Nick at Night too, because Nick at Night was a whole. Nick at Night is not what it used to be in my mind. But yeah, so do you have episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark that you remember? And specifically, the question I want to also propose is, which ones do you remember scaring you to death?
I specifically remember 2 of them that like every time they would come on, because I loved horror, like ever since I was probably too young to be watching something like that. But so I would get so excited when I knew it was that episode, but then I'd also be like closing my eyes, even though I knew it was going to happen because it freaked me out every time. And it was the dollhouse one and the one where there was like a monster in the pool.
Okay. See, I don't remember either of those.
Dollhouse.
Zebo the Clown scared the ever-living shit out of me.
That's the one,
That's the one that terrified me. What?
I think that may have been the first episode.
Second episode.
Okay.
I might own the first 2 seasons on DVD when they were very briefly available on Amazon. First season, the first episode's all right. It's like the killer. It's like a taxi cab driver who's like undead and his head turns around like The Exorcist and starts yelling at the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zebo the Clown was very early in the show and very quickly set the tone of like what was that show going to be. The episode with Melissa Joan Hart, where she goes to her grandparents' house and there's a ghost of a little boy in the woods that keeps going, "I'm cold."
Oh God,
that used to creep me out.
I just blocked that out.
And then there was another one where it was these kids. I think I had to look it up. It was like The Tale of Floor 17 or something like that. And it was these kids, and they used to play. They lived in an apartment complex, and the top floor of the apartment complex was always abandoned. So they would just go up there and play up there. And then one day they walked up there, and it was like a factory filled with faceless aliens. Like it was just like people with no faces. And they were trying to figure out what was going on. And then the one kid realized that he was an alien and he got lost and he had forgotten that he had gotten lost. And they were there to like get him back. But it was like I think that started my fear of like things with no faces. Like that's like a thing that bothers me in movies a lot.
So you don't like the Wu-Tang Clan album cover?
No, it's very unsettling. And I think some people are throwing in some of their Are You Afraid of the Dark memories. We got Dave in here says, Are You Afraid of the Dark had 2 reoccurring characters in a few episodes, Dr. Vic and Sardou. I do remember Dr. Vic for sure. The Doll Maker and Dead Man's Float are the 2 that you're thinking of, Tessa.
Yeah.
Zebo and the pinball one at the mall. I was going to bring up the pinball one in the mall. I remember that one mostly for the ending because the kid played the pinball machine when he was told he wasn't supposed to play the pinball machine. And then he's like in this pinball game where he has to save a princess or whatever. And he completes the game. And then he looks up and he's seeing through the glass and it's the shopkeeper who warned him. And he's like, I still got 2 more balls left. And then it was just this giant pinball as he was like pulling back the plunger to fire it. And that's how the episode ended. But I was like, oh, that's terrifying.
Wow.
The Frozen Ghost, man, David is on point. 13th Floor, that was the other one I was talking about. And it was the girl who was the alien. All right. And David knows his Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Wow.
The only other one that I remember is, do you remember, I think it was the 3rd or 4th episode, but it was The Tale of the Lonely Ghost. And it was the house across the street. It was just this pale girl, and she kept writing "help me" backwards inside the mirror.
Oh my God.
And the girls, I think it was like the girl's babysitter or grandmother or something, was that little girl's mother, and she had to reunite the mother with the mirror, and then the mom walked through the mirror and connect it with her daughter. And that was the thing that was crazy about Are You Afraid of the Dark, was it had the scary ones, and then it had like genuinely effective emotional endings to some of the episodes. Like I actually kind of got choked up saying the ending of that one, but like it was for what it was, for a kid's horror show. And if you don't agree with what I'm saying, watch an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark and then follow it up with an episode of Goosebumps. Are You Afraid of the Dark had so much stronger writing and didn't hold its punches the way that Goosebumps did.
No.
Like, Are You Afraid of the Dark dealt with some heavy stuff, had death, had some really scary stories. But I think that people kind of lump it together because they were both like Canadian produced kids horror anthology shows, but one was definitely superior to the other.
You know what? I wonder too, because remember later on when they had like a new cast of kids for the Midnight Society, it was kind of the second generation.
Yeah.
I felt like the episodes got a whole lot less scary then. And I don't know if that's just because I was also getting older or because they did get less scary. Do you guys remember that?
I do. And I think of one time I had to interview Lisa Foyles from All That, and she was part of the second cast of All That after the first cast had left. And, you know, I brought that up to her. I said, you know, I feel like a lot of people of my generation would always complain that the second cast wasn't as funny or this, that, and the other thing. She goes, yeah. And she's like, the thing is, we were 12-year-old kids making a show for 12-year-olds. And then they got a new cast, and a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds decided to tune in to see how the new cast was. And they're like, this isn't as funny as it used to be. And it's like, no, you're 5 years older than the demographic that this is designed for. Like, so I think that there is that element, because like, obviously I've watched the Zebo the Clown episode now. I'm not like cowering under the couch when I watch it. But I think that when I think about it through the lens of being a kid, it is a genuinely scary ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that, you know, we think about even like the scary stories that tell in the dark. Like, yeah, those stories in your 30s aren't terrifying, but like they were horrifying as a kid to read. I remember, I think it was a spin-off of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I want to say it was like The Little Green Room or something like that. But there was the story of the green ribbon around the girl's neck, and when the guy took the ribbon off, her head fell off.
That
and
was in Scary Stories, yeah.
Yeah, that fucked me up. Like, that story scared me so bad. It was one of my first memories of getting a book from the library and being horrified by what I had read. Like, but like now I'm an adult. I'm like, whatever. It's like a weird, goofy, like campfire story, you know, but it, as like a 6-7-year-old kid, it affected me on a very deep level. Let's see. We got a couple more comments that rolled in, but I think we're getting to the tail end of it. One of the episodes I remember is the one where the girl suspected her new neighbors were vampires. It felt like a version of that 80s movie Fright Night.
Yeah.
Was Roundhouse on Nick? Yep, Yanks, you're a little bit late. We did bring it up briefly. Yep, Roundhouse was definitely a Nickelodeon show.
We got to see if there's any of that on the internet.
The Zebo the Clown episode was called Laughing in the Dark.
Ah.
You're having a blast at the park when you're laughing in the dark. I think that's what the carny would say outside of the ride. But the weird shit, like I said, rent-free, just retain like the most insane things.
I just had a memory of like, this is like my weirdest Nickelodeon memory, and at least for me. So I used to be obsessed with writing down lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would keep notebooks. I don't know about you, Matt, but I know
I had notebooks filled with song lyrics.
Filled with song lyrics. You know what I remember very vividly just now, writing down at my kitchen table the song lyrics to Clarissa Explains It All theme song.
Wasn't it just na 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 all right?
Yes, it was. all right. But I would like literally sit there. I remember my mom came because I was like doing it instead of homework, and I was like writing it, and she's like, "What class do you have to write na 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 all right? Like what class is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, music class, Mom."
Dave reminding me of the one other thing I wanted to bring up. Yeah, Nick at Night. So I never watched it. Again, like I said, I was a cartoons kid. If it wasn't cartoons, I wasn't interested. Now as an adult, I get kind of let down because I'll see that like Nick at Night's on, and I'm like, ooh, Nick at Night. Like I can watch some classic 50s and 60s sitcoms, and now like Nick at Night is like Fresh Prince and Full House, and it's like, I get it. Unfortunately, it's the same amount of distance of time as when I was a kid watching Nick at Night.
It's not good though. Like it's not like Full House was at least still like nostalgic. It's far enough away. I'm seeing like King of Queens on Nick at Night now.
Yeah, I know Friends was on there for a while, but like that was the thing. I now in retrospect as an adult, I kick myself for not like watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, for not watching I Love Lucy on Nick at Night. Like I was just like, oh, black and white, boo. turning it off. Then like flash forward to 30 years later, and I'm like texting Tessa what silent films she should watch.
Yeah.
Like it's like a dramatic change in like personality.
Oh,
But yeah, just
see, I was obsessed with Bewitched. I would watch Bewitched on Nick at Night
Uh,
all day long.
my brain for a split second was like the Irish pop group. But
I was listening to that in the day and then watching at night.
There you go.
oh man, it looks like apparently we got booted from Twitch, which is insane because we haven't really played anything
Really?
for a long time. And I just
Wow.
got that notification. So sorry to any Twitch.
It was my singing.
Yeah, probably copywritten. The writers of the Clarissa Explains It All theme just were not having it.
That's the exact wrong amount of
Yeah,
no,
so
no, sir.
Yeah, not without us getting our quarter.
No, not going to show that on Twitch.
One of the next shows I remember was 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd. It was about this mean kid who got turned into a dog by a mysterious drifter. Two things about that show, because I saw the look on your face. You had no clue what this guy was talking about.
Not a clue.
Okay. First off, Seth Green was the star of the show, and he voiced this talking dog.
Oh.
Second of all, the theme song was Lost It by the Hippos.
Oh,
It was what
shit.
introduced me to the Hippos.
Nice.
But yeah, that show never got its conclusion. He never finished all 100 Good Deeds, but it was literally a bully kid gets turned into a dog, and the only person he can talk to is the kid he most recently bullied.
Wait, this is not an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark now?
No,
This is its
this
own
was
show?
its own TV show. This dog could only talk to the kid who he had last bullied.
Wow.
And that kid had to help him complete 100 good deeds in order for him to turn back into a boy.
No.
Which is actually a really great setup for a show.
It's like My Name is Earl for kids.
It's My Name is Earl for kids. It's also extremely smart to be like, we have to produce 100 episodes so we can get syndication, and also so that Eddie can become a boy again.
Yeah.
Genius.
And
using the hippos. Great.
And using the hippos, fantastic. But yeah, speaking of, this just triggered another memory. Speaking of kids that could turn into animals, Nickelodeon had Animorphs, which was my favorite book series as a kid.
I forgot that was on Nick.
Yeah.
Eddie crawled so Earl could run. Okay, so maybe we still are on Twitch because that one came in from Yanks on Twitch.
Okay.
But yeah, Animorphs, I'm sure that's another one where I'll watch it now as an adult and be like, oof. But I'm currently in the middle of rereading that book series, and for a young adult's novel, that book deals with some wild shit for a kid to be reading. Like, did either of you read Animorphs?
Mm-mm. I watched the show, but I didn't read the books.
Okay.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
So the Animorphs books were about a group of kids. It was 6 kids. They see an alien crash land in this deserted area by their mall, and he's like, he's dying, and he's like, look, there is a race of aliens that are slug-like parasites that go into your ear and then puppeteer your body.
Sure.
And you have no control over anything. They are taking over Earth as we speak. I am one of the last people from this group of warrior aliens set out to destroy these creatures. I don't think that we can help you. I'm going to give you this power to morph into animals so that you can try to fight while we build up a better defense base to come and help you guys out.
Seems plausible.
So these kids can all they have to do is touch an animal, and they can acquire its DNA, and then they have it locked and loaded whenever they want, and they can transfer. But he's like, the one rule is if you stay as that animal for more than 2 hours, you are stuck as that animal for the rest of your life.
Oh.
In the first book, one of the kids gets trapped as a hawk for the rest of his life. The brother, the main character, finds out that his brother is under the control of these aliens.
Ugh.
And the one kid finds out that his mom, who he thought died 5 years ago, was taken over by the leader of the aliens and is the person that is spearheading the attack on Earth. So both of them have to come to terms with the fact that they're probably going to have to kill their mom and their brother during this war to save the Earth. That's the first issue, is the information that they're dropping on you. And it just gets more devastating every book throughout. It is just and it's you read it and it's you're literally following over this, I think it was a 54 book series. Them just going from happy-go-lucky kids to basically they're all just fucking the dude in Rocky 4 where they're just like, if he dies, he dies.
Yeah,
Like, they're
right.
just like they're just ruthless. They're people who've seen war and they can't tell
Trauma,
anybody
loss of
about it.
empathy.
Oh my god,
just-
it is a heavy book series.
Wow.
And it's wild to like read that and then also like read a Goosebumps book that was coming out at the same time, and it's just so like like happy go lucky. Like,
there's a vampire next door.
yeah. Oh no, it's not just a vampire. Oh, it's not a vampire. He just doesn't like garlic on his pizza. Weird. Womp womp. End of book. And you're like, oh god.
For a different adventure, choose page 54.
Oh my god, I remember those
I
too.
know.
One of the shows I remember was Welcome Freshman, that originally began as a sketch show but was changed to a high school drama show. I
Oh.
don't remember that at all. True stories from famous people. It aired during commercial breaks. I think I do remember that.
Remember that, yeah.
Do you remember just the orange couch of Snick?
Yeah.
Like it was just the orange couch would just appear in all these different places. I think we're gonna wind down a little bit, but I want to do one last thing that I want to pull up on our on this live stream just for a little bit. We'll do see if we get booted off of the stream. I just want to pull up some of those classic Nickelodeon commercials.
I think much like we talked about, Matt, in the previous one, MTV, Nickelodeon also really had a lot of its identity in selling itself in commercials.
Oh,
like their branding was on point.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. So let's just kind of click into these and feel free to talk over top of them. I'm going to lower the volume just a little bit. But let's just see how many of these we really truly remember. I don't even have to click play.
Immediate flashback on that one.
And I know all three of us are like, yep, this classic.
And that's when I fell in love with doo-wop music.
Yeah. Like the way of creating this weird collection of noises and turning it into a theme song that gets stuck in your head is insane to me, but it worked. I don't remember this one. What is this? No, that is.
Yeah, I remember this.
Well, this is like the Budweiser frogs before the Budweiser frogs.
Yep. Oh wow.
That's the best part, is when you just suddenly remember.
Yeah. Oh man. I'm suddenly in a room with wood paneling and brown carpets. My feet on the vent with my face pressed up against the TV. Yeah, the ants at the picnic. Yep.
They're so short.
Nickelodeon.
Wow, I forgot about this one, but I
sing this one a lot around the house.
That was a huge argument too. Like almost like how many Chugga Chuggas before Choo Choo? How many Nicks before the Nickelodeon?
Yeah. Did Enya do a special theme?
Yeah.
Let's see. We got a couple more comments.
That one's calming. That's mindful.
Yeah. I remember this one. This was my Nickelodeon intro.
Oh, the slime, the barbershop guys one. Yeah. That. Nick.
Yep, I remember that specific noise. The duh guy is just walking.
Oh yeah.
The only thing a T-Rex can do with his arms.
Snap. They're worthless.
It's a lot of harmonizing and all of it.
Yeah.
The variety of animation just in the bumpers alone is fantastic. I don't remember this.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, I do remember this.
Yep. The angry octopus.
These bits I remember with the opera singer.
Yeah, that noise.
There we go.
What is this, Gullah Gullah Island?
Oh my god, I forgot about Gullah Gullah Island. Just like the quickness of the bumpers too. Like I think that like remember when we did the MTV ones? They were like minute-long commercials.
Well, kids don't have that type of
That's true.
Because you were like, oh, animation, I'm It's not animation. I'm turning it off. So
Yeah. Is there any, as we're wrapping this up, is there any Nick, were either of you Nick Jr. kids?
A little bit.
Junior.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like-
remember being there for some of it. Like Gullah Island, like you mentioned, that was Nick Jr., I'm pretty sure.
I remember Richard Scarry. The whatever world of Richard Scarry, where he was that worm that drove an Apple car.
Yeah.
And then obviously Face was the face of Nick Jr.
Mm.
And my guy, Summertime with Stick Stickly.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
I had a friend who used to have the theme song memorized. I'm trying to think. It was like, "Write to me, Stick Stickly, da 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 da, New York City, New York State, 10108," or something like that. Like, it was like, I can't remember what the thing was though. But yeah, good stuff. Oh, it was "Write to me, Stick Stickly, PO Box 963."
Wow.
New York City, New York State, 10108.
I wonder who has that PO box now.
Probably Stick Stickly still.
Stickly will never die.
I would never let that go.
No.
And we got a couple more from Yanks. Is cartoon.
The Elephant Show, Sharon, Lois, and Bram.
The first live show I ever saw was my parents took me to see Sharon, Lois, and Bram live
Wow.
at like an ice skating rink.
We now need to end with the Skinnamarink Dinky song.
I think that's only fair. Tessa, do you remember the Skinnamarink Dinky Dink song?
You know, I don't think I ever knew what it was from, but I definitely remember the song.
Do you know the hand motions?
Well, I don't know if I remember.
Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, Skinnamarink Doo. I love you. Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, Skinnamarink Doo. I love you. It's like, I love you in the evening and in the afternoon.
Yeah, I love
you in the morning underneath the moon.
Something like that.
Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, Skinnamarink Doo. I love you. I love you singing.
Hey,
I love you. Oh, beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you, everybody.
Just like an organ.
Love you in the evening. There we go. Thank you, Yanks, for clarifying. Guys, this has been a blast. Tessa, thank you so much for hanging out with us for this weird thing that we try to do once a month and just talk about anniversaries.
Yeah.
Random stuff. Guys, in the chat real quick, I'm going to ask Tessa to tell us a little bit about not just, doing this awesome Nick Toons video that if you haven't checked out yet, go to Geekscape TV and you should subscribe. We got videos dropping every Tuesday for the foreseeable future. Some are voiced by him. Some are voiced by Tessa. The really bad ones are voiced by me. And you can enjoy all of that good stuff. But while you're talking about Femme Regard podcast, the awesome podcast that you've been running for quite a while now, in the comments, guys, let us know some of the things that you think we should talk about when we do this again in September. Just start throwing them in the chat, and we'll discuss them real quick before we sign out.
Cool. Yeah. So, guys, I have a podcast that I co-host and co-produce called Femme Regard Podcast. And my co-host name is Carolina Alvarez. And we started it after we started our production company of the same name. And the whole reason we started it was to kind of talk to people who either are thinking about starting out in film, have just started out in film, or are just interested in filmmaking, and really talk to them about how we had no idea what we were doing when we started, but how we learned everything and kind of our journey along the way, the things that we're constantly learning. And then we bring on a ton of industry professional guests that talk a lot more about stuff that they know a lot more about than we do. So we have a really good time and we've learned a ton just hosting the show. So we hope that our listeners get to learn a lot too. So yeah, if you're interested in independent filmmaking, tune in to Femme Regard Podcast. And we're on all the platforms, including, of course, Geekscape and our website, femregard.com.
Awesome. We got some last comments to sign us out with. Guys, go check out Femme Regard Podcast first and foremost. But that was way better than Matt's High School Band.
Yes.
Yep, you can check that out on the on the YouTube channel. Cartoon. I still don't know what that is, but I'll do some research.
It sounds familiar, though. I feel like it was like cartoon, but I don't remember what the actual content was.
Well, that's like I didn't know what Captain Caveman was for the longest time, but I knew that I'd just be like, Captain Caveman. And Matt, I just sent you the Cat Came Back video, which I will be pulling up just before AJ and I dive into more voiceover work. Once again, Tessa, thank you so much, guys. Check out the Femme Regard podcast. We'll be back, I don't know, some Tuesday in early September, I'm sure, and we'll figure out what the topic is that we're going to discuss. But Cartoon Network's Nick Toons. I was thinking maybe we'll do one on Cartoon Network in general, because evil finger twiddle, whatever that was. I believe in September is when Adult Swim launched.
Oh.
So we could talk about the early days of Adult Swim, and I think I have a guest or two that we can bring on to help us reminisce with that as well, because I got some memories of Adult Swim. So so plan for that. Early September, we're talking Adult Swim. Tessa, once again, love you, adore you. Great job as always. And we will be back next month with another one of these weird Let's Talk with Everybody live streams.